I get into what has been put on my heart, I want to explain a little background of why I want to share this message. When I was 11 years old, I started struggling with an eating disorder, and it persisted until I was about 18 or 19 years old. And along with it, there was a lot of suicidal ideation, and there was a lot of poor decision making that came with that eating disorder. And essentially, had I allowed my eating disorder habit to control my life and my identity, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. My overriding message is that you can make a U-turn at any time. In my heart, I sense that there is someone or several people out there who are dealing with a cycle of condemnation and shame because you've made some poor decisions, whether it's with your money, your body, your relationships, your work, or even just the day in and day out occurrences of how you respond to traffic, what you decide to put in your body for food, or what you decide not to put in your body for food. Even those little things you say to yourself, or there's a voice that says to you, you've come this far, you've done this badly, there's no turning back. I'm here to speak the truth and to tell you that you get to make a U-turn anytime you want. And I'm here to give you a few tools to help you change direction and maintain that direction in a positive. Obviously, a U-turn is going in the opposite direction that you've been heading in. And it's really important that if you're going to change direction, you have vision of where you're heading. There's a proverb that says, without vision, people perish. You can change direction, but if you don't know where you're heading, you could head in another toxic direction. So it's really important to identify the opposite of what you've been dealing with. And this requires being really honest with yourself and with your loved ones about what you're struggling with. For example, if it's a negative attitude and a complaining spirit, then you need to be able to identify that and then identify the opposite direction, which is I want to have a heart of gratitude. I want to have positive, affirmative things to say about the world around me, the people around me, and my circumstances. Once you've identified the direction you want to head into, that's your base for your actions. So if we're having a conversation about changing direction, there are 4 main areas that are going to help us sustain that change in direction. The first is power, the second is planning, the third is persistence, and the fourth is presence. I've broken these down all into P's so that they're memorable and hopefully they'll stick with you. In regards to power, and I know that AA and other organizations that help people move out of addiction follow this line of thought, but in regards to power, it's really important that we are able to move into a space where we surrender to the power of someone or something that is greater than us. The reason this is important is because thus far our addiction or poor behavior has been the most powerful thing consuming us. If we look at the world around us, both the scientific and the spiritual point to power as the point of change, the point of movement. Oftentimes, when I'm working with people, I will encourage them to go out to the ocean, go out to a mountain, go out to a field, or wherever they sense a level of power that's greater than themselves. And when you stand in that place, you begin to get a vision of how much bigger someone or something is outside of your situation. And in fact, you may even find yourself beginning to find hope that this beauty, this power transcends what I'm struggling with. Perhaps there's hope to change. Perhaps there's hope to be different than where I'm at. The last thing I'm going to say about power is, and this is part of the second step, which is planning, but in regards to power, you're going to want to set up a time of the day to tap into that power, to access that power, or several times a day. Some people do it through prayer, some people do it through meditation, some people do it through going into nature and standing in front of power, whether it's a mountain or an ocean, as I said before. But plan on having time to access that power. The second step is planning. You want to plan in advance to set yourself up for success. So, for example, knowing your triggers, knowing what causes you to turn towards a certain behavior or an addiction, whether it's pornography or an eating disorder, binging, purging, knowing what your triggers are and what your weak moments are, and identifying where you need to get comfort or identifying the behaviors that you want to start practicing in contrast to what you've done in the past. For example, if driving in traffic on the 405 and entering into a habit of road rage has been your history, then you want to plan on an alternative response. So, for example, listening to calming meditative podcasts. There are many apps, there are many different resources on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and through apps that you can play in your car, or literally having on your dashboard a response, a step-by-step response. When somebody cuts me off, I'm going to express gratitude for this, this, and this. But having a plan in place for how you're going to respond. The fourth P that I want to insert here is one that's really close to my heart because it's been a huge factor in my healing and in my change, and that is presence. If we are going to change a history of toxic and poor decisions and habits, then we really need to have the presence of others in our lives, the presence of people who are healthy, people who can keep us accountable to the new decisions that we want to make, the new direction that we want to take, people who can cheer us on and celebrate the small victories with us, people who can ask us the hard questions and still love us and have grace towards us when we fall down. Presence is huge, especially when it comes to addiction. Isolation is the friend of addiction, whether it's pornography, drinking. So presence means you're not isolated anymore. You're not operating in secrets. And secrets are really where bondage locks in and makes you feel like you can't get out. So as soon as the truth is revealed, there's a passage that says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. And so when we're in presence with other people, there's truth, there's revelation, there's no more secrets. And suddenly we find that we are free in the truth. And so that's why I encourage presence. There are many groups that help with addictions, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous. There are many groups for sex addiction. There's Celebrate Recovery. Organizations and groups for codependency and eating disorders. And so it's really important to take advantage of these resources and friendships that are healthy and can keep us accountable. If we look at my history, I had an 8-year eating disorder, 8 years of suicidal ideation, which actually lasted longer than 8 years. It persisted even after my eating disorder was healed. But essentially what pulled me out of that place was presence. I went to a conference and a woman was speaking about eating disorders, and I went up to her afterwards and I said, oh yeah, I have this friend who has an eating disorder. And she looked right at me and she said, Anna, do you stick your finger down your throat every day? And I literally burst into tears. What she said may seem harsh, but it was her throwing me a lifeline. I needed the truth, and the truth set me free. That was the beginning of my healing. That was the beginning of me recognizing that I was living an identity that God never, ever planned for me. And when I began to embrace who I really was and did a U-turn and said, I don't have to do this anymore, that was when I truly started living. Whatever situation you're in today, no matter what you've done, no matter what poor choices you've made with yourself or with other people, I want you to know that this is not the rest of your life. This might be a moment in your life, but it does not have to define your life. You get to make another choice. And I hope that what I've said today encourages you to